My name is Frances Allard, and 3 weeks following my grandfather's burial, my mother dispatched a group text. Family meeting Sunday 3 p.m. Be punctual. No explanation, no warm-up, just a command. And like an idiot, I went. The house appeared exactly as I recalled: tidy shrubs, blue shutters, a porch swing nobody ever utilized. But something felt different the instant I entered. It wasn't the illumination, it wasn't the quiet, it was the setup. My family sat rigidly in the living room with 2 unfamiliar men in pressed suits already present. "Francis," my mother declared with that rehearsed smile she employed at church potlucks and school fundraisers, the one that never touched her eyes. "Meet our family consultants." She motioned toward the 2 men as if they were longtime friends, as though this wasn't an ambush with formal attire. One of them rose to offer his hand. I remained still. I looked at my sister Karen, who gazed into her lap like a reprimanded child, then at my younger brother Mason, whose eyes were crimson but tearless. My stepfather positioned himself by the fireplace, arms crossed like he'd been practicing that stance for weeks. "Would you care for some coffee?" my mother inquired. I placed my leather folder on my lap and crossed my legs. "No, I'd prefer to know why I'm here." "Because we're family," she responded, her voice sticky and artificial, "and your grandfather would have desired us to collaborate." That's when I understood what this was. Not a meeting, not a discussion. It was a pitch, a calculated attempt to make me surrender the one thing they hadn't managed to take while he was living: his legacy. And regrettably for them, I'd arrived prepared. My grandfather Harold Vance wasn't merely the man who raised me. He was the reason I believed in order, in spreadsheets, in honoring the commitments you make even when nobody's observing. He established Vance Materials when he was 27 with a corroded pickup truck and a handshake loan from a neighbor. By the time I was born, it was a multi-state distributor of commercial-grade lumber, insulation, and concrete composites. Every contractor within 5 counties recognized his name. As a child, while my sister pleaded for glittery shoes and Mason played with train sets, I requested to visit the warehouse. I adored the sharp aroma of pine, the buzz of forklifts, the way Grandpa's voice echoed through the steel beams when he walked the floor. When I was 12, he handed me my first ledger and said, "Let's see how your mind handles columns instead of crayons." I was captivated. My mother Denise never grasped it. She preferred nice things, and she preferred them quickly. She once told me, "Your grandfather constructs warehouses, I construct a life." That life included 3 maxed-out credit cards, a leased Mercedes, and a rotating door of crisis purchases. Spa retreats labeled as emotional healing, handbags purchased on clearance, and charity galas for networking. The will was read 2 weeks after the funeral in a wood-paneled conference room that reeked of furniture polish and vintage leather. My mother wore black silk and oversized sunglasses like she'd stepped off the set of a low-budget soap opera. Karen sniffled quietly through the preamble. Mason just appeared bewildered. The attorney, Mr. Holbrook, maintained a steady voice as he moved through the formalities. Minor bequests, a scholarship donation to Grandpa's alma mater, a small trust for a retired employee. And then, to my granddaughter Frances Claire Allard, I leave the remainder of my estate, including but not limited to all remaining shares in Vance Materials, my personal investment accounts, real property holdings, and personal effects. The room froze. I sensed it before I heard the reaction. "This is a joke," my mother snapped, pushing her sunglasses up to her forehead. He must have been confused. "Read it again." "I've read it several times, Mrs. Vance," Holbrook replied, unperturbed. "Your father was explicit." Karen gasped like it was a line from a stage play. "He loved all of us. He wouldn't pick favorites." Mason didn't utter a word. He just rubbed his hands together like he didn't know what to do with them. "This isn't happening," my mother whispered. But it was. In that moment, I wasn't just his granddaughter. I was the sole heir to everything Harold Vance had constructed from nothing. And I wasn't ready. Later that day in the parking lot, my mother approached me with calm venom in her voice. "Just sign everything over," she said. "I'll divide it fairly." I'll make sure everyone's taken care of. I didn't respond, not because I was uncertain, but because I needed to select my words carefully. I need time to think. She narrowed her eyes. This isn't yours, Francis. It's ours. Family money, family legacy. That's not what Grandpa said. Her mask slipped. He was manipulated. You spent too much time with him. He wasn't well. But he had been. He'd updated the will 6 months before his death. Fully lucid, fully intentional. I remembered the day well. He'd sat me down in his study and said, "They're going to hate this, but I built this for someone who understands what it cost me to make it. That person's not your mother." It wasn't a compliment. It was a burden, a responsibility. And it was now mine. The first message came that night. It was from Karen. "Please don't let this ruin everything. We're still your family." Then my mother. "You'll understand once you have children of your own. Family comes first." Then Mason, a single word text at 1:43 a.m. Why? By morning, my voicemail was full. Old friends of my mother, women I hadn't seen since the neighborhood bake sales in middle school. "Francis, I'm heartbroken. Your mother always spoke so highly of you. This is such a disappointment." Disappointment. That word appeared frequently. What they didn't see, what they'd never cared to understand, was what Grandpa and I had actually built together. Not just a business relationship, but a bond forged in mutual respect. I didn't inherit it like a lottery. I earned it, one spreadsheet, one late-night phone call, one warehouse visit at a time. But none of that mattered in the court of family opinion. 2 days later, Mason showed up outside my apartment. No call, just his hunched figure on the lobby security cam, hands jammed in his jacket pockets, looking like a kid who'd forgotten his homework. When I opened the door, he didn't step inside. "I'm not here to argue," he said. "Okay." He glanced up, his eyes bloodshot but focused. "Mom's losing it. She's already calling realtors, says she needs to refinance the house before you freeze the assets." I blinked. "I haven't frozen anything." "She doesn't believe that, Mason." I paused. "I just wanted to warn you, she's planning something." Then he left. No hug, no handshake. Just walked back down the hall like he wasn't sure if he belonged anywhere anymore. I closed the door and stood there, silent, not sad, not angry, just empty. It was beginning. That night, Liam, my boyfriend and the only person who hadn't treated me like an ATM with a soul, brought takeout and held my hand while I stared blankly at my rice. "I want you to meet someone," he said gently. "Her name's Angela Dwyer. She's a probate lawyer, old friend from law school. She's not for a fight unless you need one. She's for protection." I didn't answer, but I nodded. The next morning, I called Angela. We met in a quiet office above a florist shop. No mahogany desks or intimidating glass walls, just plants, natural light, and someone who listened without interrupting. After hearing everything, she leaned back, fingers steepled. "You're already in the middle of a coordinated pressure campaign," she said. "Classic family guilt tactics. But based on the will and what you've told me, you're on firm legal ground." "I don't want to fight them," I said. "I just want it to stop." "Then we prepare," she said. "Just in case. Document every message, every voicemail, every visit. And no signing anything, no matter what they call it." I agreed. It sounded simple until the next message arrived. It was a photo. My mother shopping for patio furniture. "Retail therapy through grief," she captioned it. #self-care. That same day, she texted me claiming she couldn't afford her utility bill. And that's when I started printing everything. The formal invitation arrived in the form of a text message from my mother. "Sunday 3 p.m. house. Let's resolve this. Bring your paperwork." No signature, no emoji, just a time-stamped grenade. Angela didn't like it. "This feels like an ambush," she warned. "It is," I replied, "but I'm not walking in blind." She offered to come. I declined. I need to face them myself, but I want you waiting nearby. One text, she said, and I'll be at the door in 60 seconds. I arrived at exactly 2:59 p.m. The curtains were drawn. The porch smelled faintly of her perfume, which told me she'd been outside earlier, likely rehearsing. She opened the door before I could knock. "Francis," she beamed, hair freshly styled, teeth glinting like a campaign poster. Right on time. Inside, the living room was arranged like a deposition. Karen sat on the edge of the couch, spine stiff, hands knotted in her lap. Mason beside her, eyes down. My stepfather hovered near the fireplace like a bouncer. And there they were, two suited men seated in the armchairs usually reserved for family, legal pads, briefcases, wedding bands on their left hands, smiles too wide. "This is Mr. Hale and Mr. Darnell," my mother announced, gesturing theatrically. "They've graciously offered to help us resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding." I nodded but didn't extend a handshake. I wasn't here to play nice. Only one chair remained available, a high-backed wooden one positioned directly across from them all. Interrogation seating. I sat without a word and placed my leather folder across my lap. "Would you care for some coffee?" my mother asked again, still clinging to her desperate facade of civility. "I'm fine. Let's get to it." Mr. Hale cleared his throat. "We're here today because your family is deeply troubled about the tension this has created. Nobody wants a drawn-out conflict, especially when your grandfather's intention was clearly for the family to remain united." I let the silence linger. "He wrote a will," my mother interjected, her voice sweet and resolute. "And we're not challenging that, sweetheart. But surely you can acknowledge that dividing everything among us would be more peaceful." Harmony wasn't in the will either. Mr. Darnell opened his briefcase, sliding a stack of documents across the table. "This is a voluntary redistribution agreement. You retain a substantial percentage, 20%. The rest returns to the family as was always intended." "Intended by whom?" Karen finally spoke up. "Grandpa was ill, Francis. He wasn't thinking clearly. He thought you'd know what to do." "I do know," I said calmly. "Which is why I won't be signing that." Mason shifted. "Mom says if we don't resolve this now, we might lose the house." "And why is that?" I asked, still composed. "Did someone take out a second mortgage again?" My mother's expression flickered for a split second before snapping back into place. "Francis, don't do this." Mr. Hale jumped in. "It would be regrettable if this moves to court. Claims of undue influence could tarnish the estate's reputation." There it was, the threat wrapped in legalese and polished leather. I placed my hand on the folder. "Before I respond, I'd like to clarify one thing." I looked at Craig. 6 months ago, you mentioned to Grandpa's nurse that you'd already put a deposit on a property in Naples. Was that with inheritance money you hadn't yet received? His mouth opened, then closed. "I have a recording," I continued, "and a paper trail." My mother's smile disappeared. I opened the folder and laid out one sheet, a printout from my grandfather's ledger, his handwriting, "Loan Denise $30,000. She said it was for Mason's college. Heard later it was a crisis cruise. Last time." Then the next, a dated Instagram photo of her sipping champagne aboard a ship. Caption: "Deserved this #blessed." I looked up at the two consultants. "Still feel like drafting paperwork today?" They didn't respond. Neither did anyone else. My mother stood so abruptly her chair scraped against the hardwood. "You ungrateful little." I didn't flinch. I just slid another paper across the table. "May 8th, you told Grandpa Karen needed emergency dental surgery. He gave you 20 grand. I glanced at Karen. "You were in Scottsdale that weekend. Spa package, right?" I remember the monogrammed robe. Karen went pale. Craig cursed under his breath. "Francis, this is low. digging through a dead man's notes to twist his memory against his own family. He wasn't confused, I said. He was exhausted, and he kept records because he knew this would happen. I reached for the last item in my folder, a sealed envelope, slightly worn, addressed in my grandfather's looping script. For Francis, if they come for it. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. But the two men in suits were already shifting in their chairs, the confidence draining from their posture. Mr. Hale adjusted his tie. Miss Allard, we were told this would be a cooperative conversation. It was never going to be that. And you're not legal counsel, are you? Just pressure brokers. I turned to my mother. You didn't tell them I already retained a real lawyer, did you? She's in a car outside. One word from me and she's at the door. The two consultants stood up in near unison. We'll excuse ourselves, one muttered, snapping his briefcase shut. Mrs. Vance, we were unaware of any pending counsel representation. My mother's expression turned to stone. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, I said, standing. It is. I gathered my documents, slow and deliberate. I'm not signing anything. I won't enable your spending, and I won't let you rewrite the past just because the present no longer suits you. You owe us. I owe Grandpa. That's who I'm honoring. Then Mason stood. Everyone froze, even Craig. I didn't know, Mason said quietly, about the cruise or the spa or that you used my name to take money from him. He looked at Mom. You said Francis was selfish, but you lied about everything. Mason, sit down, she snapped. No. The word hit like a bell. He turned to me. Can I come with you? I nodded. Let's go. Craig stepped forward, chest puffed. You little. I raised my phone. This conversation's been recorded. He stopped cold. We left in silence, passing the stunned faces of a family that had always assumed I'd bend. Not this time. Angela was already out of her car when we stepped onto the driveway. You okay? She asked, eyeing Mason. He's with me, I said, and we're done here. Behind us, the door slammed so hard the porch light flickered. But for once, I didn't look back. Mason didn't speak much on the ride back. He sat in the passenger seat staring straight ahead, his fingers occasionally tightening around the seatbelt. When we reached my apartment, he followed me inside without asking if he could stay. He already knew. You're on the couch, I said. It folds out. Sheets are clean. He nodded. Thanks. We didn't talk about what happened. Not that night. We just sat in the quiet. I made tea, he drank it. I scrolled through emails. He stared at the ceiling. The silence wasn't heavy. It was healing. By morning, I had a plan. I returned to Grandpa's house, the one I now legally owned but hadn't touched since the funeral. I unlocked the front door. The air was stale with memory and dust. I went straight to his study. The smell of old paper, cedar, and coffee grounds still lingered. His desk was exactly as he left it. I opened the center drawer and found the journal. Flipping through its pages, I saw everything. Dates, numbers, names, annotations in his sharp, unfussy handwriting. And a new note I'd missed the first time, scribbled in the margin near the back. Francis has what Denise never learned: restraint, clarity. If she chooses to lead, this business may survive me. If she chooses to love it, it may outlive us both. I sat there a long time, just breathing. That afternoon, I met Angela for lunch and showed her the journal. She helped me file it as supplementary evidence with the probate court, sealing any loophole that might be exploited later. We also drafted the paperwork for a small educational trust in Mason's name, just enough to support his degree without tying him to anyone's leash. Angela nodded as I signed it. This is clean, fair, generous. When I got home that evening, Mason was reading one of Grandpa's old trade magazines on the couch. You know, I said, leaning on the doorframe, he always wanted to expand the business into green materials. Eco-lumber, thermal concrete. But the board wouldn't move fast enough. Mason looked up. I remember. He used to rant about it during dinner. I smiled. What would you say to an internship? Real work, no shortcuts. He blinked. Are you serious? Completely. A slow smile spread across his face. Relief, hope, maybe a trace of pride. Yeah, he said. I'd like that. We clinked mugs of cold tea in silent agreement. It wasn't the kind of legacy my mother wanted. It was better. 1 year later, I reopened the doors to Vance Materials, not as the quiet granddaughter, but as its next chapter. Mason now runs our eco division while finishing school. He's becoming the kind of man Grandpa used to hope he'd be, quietly capable, steady, focused. Karen reaches out sometimes in small, careful ways. I don't open the door wide, but I don't shut it either. My mother has disappeared into another zip code for now, and that's fine. Some inheritances are measured in money. Others are measured in scars, in choices, in silence. Grandpa didn't leave me his empire out of favoritism. He left it because I was the only one who wouldn't burn it to the ground. In his journal he once wrote, "Frances won't always be loved for doing what's right, but she'll sleep at night." He was right. I do. The wealth he gave me wasn't in stocks or property. It was in clarity, boundaries, strength. And in the end, I didn't just carry his legacy. I built my own.